Faith wearily leaned back in her chair. In the eyes already rippled the rebuilt rows of block letters. The terminology did not climb into my head. The girl looked at her watch and groaned. The shooters were mercilessly approaching 1:30 in the morning, and the next morning, classes and a run were waiting for her. It was necessary to go to bed, anyway. The brain no longer perceived what was read. Vera lay down on the bed and stared up at the ceiling. She was so worried that she could not sleep, but thoughts were spinning in her head not about the subject, but about the family. The girl could not let her mother down by dropping out of medical college. Vera's father was a doctor, and also a rather handsome and loving man. He had an official previous and present family. The father never promised them anything, but without registration of alimony he regularly sent money for the maintenance of his daughter. When he came on business trips to a small town, he always stayed at their house, which made little Verochka incredibly happy. Mom did not expand on the reasons why Dad was gone for so long. She said she was working. This was enough for the child. Vera idolized her father and dreamed of becoming a doctor like him. At school, she diligently studied biology and chemistry. With pleasure I read encyclopedias and books on the construction of man. Everyone knew the girl's mood and had no doubt that she would go into medicine. Dad promised to pay for tuition and agree on admission to the university. But suddenly my father had a heart attack when he was walking down the street. Nearby there was no qualified help. The ambulance did not have time to bring him to the hospital. The parting happened in a blur. Mom introduced Vera to her half-brother and sister. The fact that the father had other children unpleasantly hit the girl's pride. She felt betrayed, but then quickly calmed down. Be that as it may, the man found time for all his children. The whole horror of the situation did not reach Veronica immediately. She saw that her mother began to work longer, take extra shifts, but only after a while she understood why. Father sent money for clothes, entertainment and extra mugs. With his death, my mother had to pull everything on her own. When Vera realized this, she refused all additional waste, threw mugs, didn't buy snacks at school, stopped going with her friends for a walk, because they were always spent on movies, cafes or jewelry. The girls did not understand the act. They gradually moved away from her. By graduation evening, Vera was left alone with her mother, who disappeared at work, and without a stable future. She was still going to enter the medical school, successfully passed the exams at school and was preparing for the entrance to the university, which her father recommended to her. He said that a childhood friend works there and there will be no problems with admission. Veronica really hoped to find this friend. Mom just shook her head at such grandiose plans, but gave money for travel so that her daughter could try her luck. The girl went in advance. She wanted to get acquainted with the university, see the city and personally meet with that same friend. Megapolis fascinated her at first sight in her dreams. She was already walking along the main avenue in the company of classmates. The large tall building of the medical university was fascinating. Vera wanted to touch every brick, walk along the corridors, sit at a desk before classes began. She resolutely went to the entrance, but the guard stopped her. I wanted to meet my father's friend, Vera said. Last name, first name, patronymic, in which department does he work? The guard asked gloomily. I'll call him, check if you have an appointment with him. Here it dawned on Vera that she did not know about her last name. His father always called him simply Volodya. And of course, she did not arrange a meeting in advance. So the guard will definitely kick her out. Vera left, but she was not going to give up so quickly, so she went in search of free Wi-Fi. Vera didn't have mobile internet either. Because of the economy, she had to run around several streets before she came across a cafe on the way, caught the network on the street, and the girl stopped near the window. She went to the site in search of teaching staff. There were 3 Volodkas at the university. The girl threw away one, due to her advanced age and professorial status. Father said that he and his friend played together in the yard in the kindergarten, which means there were 2 options left. Vera tried to remember the names and photos of the teachers. She decided to be on duty under the university to talk with them, but turning to the cafe window, she saw a man from one of the photos. He was sitting at a table alone, although there were 2 cups of coffee in front of him. The girl entered the hall and went straight to the man. She decided to ask him about her father while he was waiting for an interlocutor. "Good afternoon. Tell me, were you not acquainted with Mikhail Arkadyevich Simonov?" Vera asked. "I can't remember," the man frowned, looking at the girl in surprise. "Looks like there was a doctor." "Yes, there was." Vera nodded ruefully. "Sorry to bother you, I was wrong," but before she could move away from the table, an angry woman appeared right in front of her. "So you have nothing to do with these brats?" "Excuse me," Vera mumbled and hurriedly ran out of the cafe. I settled down on a bench near the entrance to the university and began to watch the passers-by. She was lucky about an hour later on the street with a briefcase under her arm and jumped out. "Third Volodka." The girl immediately rushed to intercept him and asked her question. The man nodded in the affirmative and was surprised when Vera introduced herself as the daughter of the deceased. "How many of you did he have?" The teacher asked, dumbfounded. "My ex-wife has already come to me with a request to arrange a son for a university, but one relationship with a doctor is not enough to become a doctor." "And what do you want?" "Well, in truth," Veronica hesitated, "Dad wanted me to come here, but now no one can advise me. Can you tell me which faculty I should apply to?" "But when I got my certificate for a start," the teacher frowned. He studied the scores and chuckled. "Well, maybe you will have a chance to get a contract. As I understand it, you are not interested." The man gave several recommendations about the faculty, but said that he was not going to help. The only chance Vera had was the budget. But when the girl arrived for the exam, it turned out that 12 people were applying for one place. She lacked only 1 point to get into the university. The girl was offended to tears. Her mother reassured her daughter and offered to go to university in her hometown. And not medical, but pedagogical, but the competition is much less. Vera categorically refused. She tuned into a doctor, which means she will become a doctor. The girl applied to college. There was a hope that after graduation she would be transferred to the 3rd year of the university. The college was also located in a big city. Vera entered there without any problems, moved to a hostel, but very soon ran into a lack of money. Mom sent help, but it was negligible for life in the metropolis. Often Vera simply had nothing to eat. Saved by a neighbor, about whom big bags from the village regularly came. She fed Vera, and in return asked for help with her studies. Due to financial difficulties, the girl did not get along with her classmates. The rest called her a ragamuffin and did not accept her into their company. The headman constantly forgot Vera's record book, did not warn about the postponement of classes and did not convey the requests of the teachers. The girl sometimes fell into despair, but stubbornly continued to gnaw at the granite of science and bypass all obstacles on the way to the goal. 2 years passed in torment. Well, at least with studies everything worked out. And on the 3rd day, a girl from another city was transferred to their group. Due to her family moving, she had to change colleges. On the very first day, the new girl sat down with Vera at her desk and asked her about everything. The next morning, Nastia was surrounded by a dense ring of other girls in the group, and the headman spoke something in a whisper. Faith lost heart, the only hint of a friend, and he faded away. To Vera's surprise, the new girl nevertheless sat down at her desk with her and even continued to communicate. When Nastia offered to run in the mornings and in the city park, Veronica agreed without hesitation. If she gets a girlfriend thanks to getting up early, then what difference does it make when the alarm goes off? But on the eve of the tests, and the idea no longer seemed great. The girl still fell asleep, and then she could not find the screaming alarm clock. The neighbor threatened to break the phone, and what Vera immediately woke up. The girl was reluctantly going for a run. Nastia was already warming up at the entrance to the park. She affably waved her hand and the girl, without saying a word, turned onto a narrow path away from the main entrance. There they liked to run more than along the central alley with dozens of students, teachers, and local residents. When the girls ran past the canal, half filled with water, Vera habitually began to look for ducks with her eyes. But instead of birds, she suddenly saw a man at the very edge of the water. She called Nastia. "Come on, some drunkard, let's get out of here." Girlfriend winced. There were many alcoholics in the park, and especially in the morning after spending the night on a bench, they dispersed around the neighborhood. The night turned out to be rainy, and the ground around was soaked, the clothes on the stranger were all in mud. He lay, turned away from the girls. "We need to check if everything is okay with him. Suddenly need help. But crawl there if you want." Nastia rolled her eyes. "I'll stand here." Vera went to the descent, called the man, but he did not answer. Then she carefully stepped on the wet ground and flew down with a screech. She could not stay on her feet and sat down right in the dirt. Pants and sneakers were hopelessly soiled, but Vera forgot about it as soon as her gaze settled on a stranger. She came closer, touched the man and jumped in surprise when he moved. She turned the stranger on his back, and the man's gaze darted from side to side, as if he did not understand where he was. "Are you all right? Man, can you hear me?" The girl bent over him, the stranger looked at Vera, opened his mouth, but instead of words, he gave out an incomprehensible hodgepodge of sounds. "It will sound strange, but smile, please," Vera asked. The man's facial muscles twitched, but there was no smile. Nastia urgently calls an ambulance. "Tell a man a stroke," Vera sharply shouted to her friend. She frightened dialed the number and chattered into the phone. Before the doctors arrived, Vera did not leave the stranger. She held his hand and told the upcoming standings. From experiences she did not know what to say. The text of the textbook read the day before surfaced in my head by itself. Nastia ran to the central alley to meet the ambulance. When the doctors of the Savior appeared, she breathed a sigh of relief. The man was pulled out of the canal and taken to the hospital. Just in case, they took the girls' contacts and praised them for their attentiveness. Dirty, but satisfied, Vera returned to the hostel. She was late for the test. But Nastia managed not only to arrive on time, but also to warn the teacher about the morning adventure. Therefore, no one scolded the girl. Vera passed the subject easily. Today thoughts were in the park. Answers were sent automatically. A well-deserved good assessment did not bring satisfaction. She spent the entire school day thinking about that dirty and helpless man. Behind her experiences, Vera did not notice the fuss around. I woke up when Nastia came running, grabbed her hand and dragged her out into the street. And in the yard of the college was a luxury car. A handsome young man in a formal suit was walking nearby. Students and teachers gathered around, and eagerly looked at the visitor. "Here she is." Nastia pushed Vera in the back. The young man introduced himself and asked both girls to go to his boss at the hospital. It turned out that Vera found a respectable businessman in the morning. A man was walking in the park and had a stroke. He fell and rolled into the canal. If the girl had not saved him, it is not known how long he would have been lying there. Doctors took care of the patient in time and now the chances of recovery were very high. Vera was taken to the ward. The businessman looked at the girl, and nodded slightly, she was immediately taken back and told that they would pay for university education. Dumbfounded, she looked at Nastia, and I asked for a new iPhone. Reported by a friend. Agree, a lot for calling an ambulance, and if not for you, he would not have survived at all. I told this assistant about your dreams of university. He solved the issue. It's so inconvenient. Vera noticed. Come on, it's the least he can do to save himself. Nastia waved it off. And you? What am I? Surprised, my friend. I don't dream of being a doctor, a nurse is enough for me, and a new iPhone, of course. For the first time in many years since her father's death, Vera smiled happily. Will her dream really come true?